Now, I know that a lot of people, even though it is optional, are still preparing or thinking about the GRE at this time of the year. I want to make this video to talk about my own personal experience and the sleepless nights and the strategies that I use that helped me score a 323 on the GRE on my first attempt. Now, these tactics are going to be practical, therefore incremental benefits, and there is no magic to this. It's just logical little steps. But well, if you do put in the work and follow these tips consistently over a period of time, it's worked for several candidates. Also, this video is sponsored by Magoosh, and I'm going to talk to you about how Magoosh can help you with these specific tips and how it can be one of your most useful allies on your GRE preparation journey. So stay tuned. Let's start right at the beginning. Do you need coaching or a coaching center to prepare for the GRE? Now, I can give you a perspective on both because I did take coaching when I was giving the GRE, and I can tell you that it was not very good. Strategies were explained, tips and tricks were given, methods to approach problems were taught, but most coaching centers are very rigid with respect to how you should go and approach a question. You'll have to understand that with the GRE, your own approach might work well for you, some other approach might work for somebody else, because this is an aptitude test, a sort of an IQ test. So your thought process is not going to be the same as somebody else's thought process, and one is not wrong, one is not right. It depends on you. If you go to a coaching center that's not very good, they're going to try and drive you and fit you into their strategies, which may not work for you. So you have to be a little intuitive. That being said, is all coaching bad? Well, probably not. Coaching centers or some sort of training will help you because it will familiarize you initially with the format of the exam, what kind of topics you need to cover, how you need to start studying for them, and how you can pick up certain tricks that universally work. For example, in the verbal section, you have the option known as eliminating the extreme option in the reading comprehensions, which means usually options that have always and never and words like that, which are extreme or definitive, typically tend not to be the right answer. So how you eliminate options to try and minimize your risk for questions which you're not sure about, and certain universal tricks and approaches are something that the coaching center will teach you. And if you're doing all of that from scratch, then maybe you're going to be wasting a little bit of time. In my case, I picked the wrong place, but if you have the right guidance, certainly coaching can help you. But once again, it depends on you. There's no definitive right or wrong. Just don't go blindly by any strategy that some place is suggesting. If it is not working for you, be a little smarter about it. In fact, I had the experience, quite to my horror, at a coaching center where the instructor was trying to push me towards a particular approach towards reading comprehension known as mind mapping. And for me, it didn't work because it was taking too long to come to an answer, which I probably derived through my own means a little intuitively. Thus, if I blindly followed or listened to the instructor, maybe I wouldn't have done as well during my reading comprehension section. Secondarily, a lot of the verbal coaches in local coaching centers do not understand how sentences flow in the English language effectively enough. They have the meanings of their words on the screen and they can't even tell you what it means. So don't go blindly unless the method is working for you. The second tip that worked for me, specifically in the verbal section, which a lot of Indian students struggle with, is that I try to maximize the reading comprehensions. Now, reading comprehensions, I have seen with a lot of students, and in my case as well, the more you practice, you can reliably get your accuracy higher during the exam. Now, with text completion and sentence equivalence, the problem is, even if you know the meanings of a lot of words, if the sentences that show up on the day are especially complex and you're not able to comprehend them, even if you know the meanings of all the words in the options, you will not know what to fit in because you don't understand the sentence itself. So you might be great on good days or bad on certain days, but with reading comprehensions, I've seen that your accuracy can certainly be higher if you put in the practice, because you get better at analyzing structures, and that remains fairly consistent during the actual test as well. Another tip for the verbal section is, don't sit down to by heart thousands of words. I know that you're going to be preparing along with friends, and some are going to say, I by hearted 2000 words, I know the meanings of 3000 words. Well, typically you don't need meanings for so many words. There is a usual list of maybe 800 to 1000 words which you can intuitively understand the meaning of, but it doesn't mean that if you have a greater set of words that you've by hearted, you're going to get a greater score. The next tip is something that I did not do well. Now, in my 323, I was one of the odd candidates who had a higher verbal score than the quantitative score. I had a 162 on the verbal and a 161 on the quant. It usually is always the flip for Indian students, where they score very highly on quant, and I left a lot of points on quant on the table. And my mistake was that I focused more on speed than accuracy. When you are preparing for the quantitative section, initially always focus on accuracy. The speed will come. You might think that the question is easy, the answer is fairly straightforward, but the GRE tricks you with its pattern of questioning. If perhaps I focused more on quantitative accuracy, I'd have made 3 or 4 more points at the minimum on the quantitative section, improving my overall score. And as Indian students, generally the tendency is for us to be better in the quantitative section. It might seem simple, but the tendency to make silly mistakes is much higher. So keep accuracy at the forefront when you're beginning your preparation and focus on speed only later. I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce our sponsors for this video, Magoosh. Now, Magoosh is a fantastic offering that covers all the tips that I've given you today. And it makes me wish that a resource like this was available to me when I was preparing for the GRE rather than my local coaching centers. Apart from the convenience of it being online, the material is really high quality. And here are some of its offerings which you should certainly consider. Now, we talked about learning words for the GRE. You certainly need to improve your vocabulary. Magoosh offers flashcards and an innovative way in which you can memorize them. Additionally, the right practice questions are very, very important. Magoosh has different levels of questions and extensive list of questions that will ensure that you are prepared. Additionally, I talked about practice. Well, a lot of practice tests will be available on the platform as well, and they will be of a high quality. There's no point doing an inferior quality sort of test and feeling that you've done a good job. Additionally, ETS line of questioning may be a little different from a lot of other locally sourced materials. Magoosh has official ETS prep questions available as well. Therefore, the accuracy and quantity is quite unmatched. Additionally, Magoosh also offers a strengths and weakness analysis so that you can try and understand where you're going wrong. It has AI assistants and AI essay graders, which again a lot of places don't offer because your AWA section is something that's going to be assessed as well with Magoosh. Thus, I genuinely recommend that you check out Magoosh. It gives you the types of practice and avenues that actually are going to matter at the end of the day in terms of improving your score. Like I said, there's no magic in this. It's only logical prep and strategy that's going to get you to your dream score. Additionally, the essay grader feature is fantastic because it not only accurately grades your essay on the spot, but it also gives you suggestions on how you can improve your essay. So that's something you should certainly check out. Next tip is perhaps the most important that I'm going to give you, and it's called practice. Now, with the GRE, after you've taken coaching or not taken coaching, you've referred textbooks, you looked at online resources, you practiced questions. The idea is that you have to simulate the test, sit down and give practice tests as often as possible within a time frame. Here are a few big mistakes that I see students making while they're giving practice tests. Number one, they simply don't give enough tests. You give 2 or 3 practice tests and then you go sit for the GRE, it's never going to be good enough. Here is the practice strategy that I followed. Over a period of 30 days, I recommend that you take a practice test every alternate day. And when you're taking this practice test, ensure you take the entire practice test, including the AWA section. Now, some people assume that the AWA is not as important and only the main body of the GRE matters more. And this is true. The AWA really does not make that much of a difference in terms of your end admit unless you get a terrible score. But writing 4 sections of the GRE after writing an essay for a significant period of time is a whole different ballgame compared to writing the main sections of the GRE fresh, right? After writing an essay, you're sitting and wondering, oh, I missed that particular point. I hope I did proofread it well enough. I made this blunder here. Your mind is occupied when you come into the main body of the GRE exam. Therefore, you have to simulate that in every single attempt. You can skip the AWA section during your practice test, but you cannot during the actual GRE, and the actual attempt becomes very different after writing an essay. So don't skip. The next thing is, it is ideal that you attempt your practice attempts of the GRE within the same time window that you're taking your actual GRE test. This trains your mind subconsciously to be performing at that level at that particular time every day. And it may or may not help, but it certainly worked for me because I did feel quite active during the time of the actual attempt because I was used to writing the test at that point in time. My final point is going to underwhelm you a little bit, but it is the truth and it is important. Don't take pressure. I know it's easier said than done, but understand that you can give multiple attempts on the GRE. If you go into the exam assuming that, okay, this is like an entrance test, and after this, I don't have a shot at my dream university for my master's, you're going to shave off 5 points off your total because pressure plays a major role. If you're giving the GRE early enough, keep it in the back of your mind that you always have the luxury of another attempt if you want to give it. You can give the GRE as many times as possible, but of course, it's expensive, so I'm not going to say give it as many times, but at least know when you're giving the attempt that there is the possibility of a second attempt. And even if it doesn't work out, you can still get into your dream school provided the rest of your profile is good enough. If you go in with this attitude, it will certainly help you improve on the day because your mind is liberated. What worked in my case and for a lot of students is during the practice phase, don't do a practice test a day before the GRE. Just relax, watch a movie, do something fun, free your mind completely. Don't be in that grunt of preparation before the GRE, which is an aptitude test. I know we revise last minute when we're giving our semester exams in college, and maybe it's worked for us, but for something like the GRE, it always backfires. So don't do that last minute prep. Relax before the exam. In fact, an entire day before the exam.